And we're off with a vavavoom. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave playing with white here, his opponent the one and only Hikaru, and he meets him halfway with the king pawn. It's the Chess.com Classic. We're in the big fat losers final. The winner of this goes on to play Mr. Magnus Carlsen himself in the grand final tomorrow. Let's dive in on this epic chess game. It's bloodshed, it's a Petrov or a Russian defense. Very boring, but soon it hots up. Now everyone in his chess dog plays d6 here, but instead we see knight takes on e4, reminiscent of Hikaru's game yesterday against Magnus, where he accepts being a pawn down, but he's got some lines worked out. Now you cannot move that knight, or otherwise you open up the X-ray attack and you get fossilized when this one does a discovered check. So this is the point. Now the knight's taken, of course you can't take back here, but you can go d6, attack the knight, and it can't move, or you Botez gambit. So d4's the response, now takes, and pawn recaptures. Now it's such a risky opening because white is just a clean pawn ahead, and not just any pawn, right? A monster central pawn. Bishops are open, better than the black bishops. You know, this is such risky chess from Hikaru. He does now attack the pawn, and it begs the question, what if bishop b5 pinning the knight? Or f4, but that one looks a bit ugly. Or bishop f4. I mean, this is one of the top moves, and it's not clear what black does. Bishop d7, castle queenside. There's counterplay, quick development here, but you're a clean pawn down. Okay, Hikaru's done his homework. However, Maxime goes knight c3, gives back the pawn simply. The ladies leave the board. We're into an end game, or is it a kind of middle game? No one really knows. It's driven many a grandmaster utterly insane. But this is the position we reach, and after knight b5, still white retains a small initiative because we get check, pawn c3, the bishop bouncing around to cover the pawn, and now bishop f4. It's a bit uncomfortable. It forces Hikaru into playing the very, very stinky pawn f6. I mean, is he really a grandmaster or a very naughty boy? Yes, you could capture, leave black with a structure that only a mother could love, but then you give up your bishop pair. Not ideal. So MVL castles queenside there. Now we see bishop e6, and you don't actually have to defend the pawn. You could go knight d4. If takes, there's a b3 trap line. Doesn't matter that this is weak. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole because we do see b3 here to stop the attack. Begs the question, what if a6? Well, I won't show the line because it comes in a minute. First we get castles, bishop e2, now pawn a6, and here's the point. After knight d4, although you've left the protection here and black can take the pawn with the bishop, you can't do it just yet, or you drop this guy. So it has to take a moment to retreat, and you use the tempo gained to now protect the pawn with the king. Very nice. Rook fe8. We've got something truly stupendous on the way here, and it's rook ad8. The rook tangle completed. The entire board starts shaking. Everyone's loving it. They have to go and eat a hearty plate of mushrooms to celebrate. What a game this is. The bishop tucks back. Always looks weird to underdevelop, but you open the eyes of the rook in this case. Now bishop b6, micro improvement, pawn h3, you know, no hops for you, sir. Rook d7 prepares to double stack, and MVL's so impressed, he's like, bro, you gonna double stack the rooks? Watch this. I'll double stack the bishops. Not quite as impressive, but still looking great. Now we see a5, met with a4. You always feel like a boss when you push a rook's pawn 2 squares. Don't know why. And now we see bishop c5. Nice play by Hikaru. Steady, just holding the fort here. Nothing too crazy, but the game hots up. First the rook is hit. You know, white definitely still has an edge here with the space, with the slightly better pieces, better bishops. Knight e7 played, and MVL uncorks an absolute banger. He plays in this position knight to e6.
And trust me, it's an absolute banger. It's a game changer.
What a thunderbolt from the blue that is. Because hang on, let's look at this first. Are you not just losing an entire rook? You know, rook takes, bang, watch the bar have an absolute meltdown. Yes, that's terrible. So you don't take with the rook, you take with the bishop is the way to go. Now hang on, are you not just losing a knight? Well, yes, but then you're losing a bishop and there's pressure down here. Here's how the line could go. You take my bishop, I take your bishop. It's all very, very ninja, but white stands a bit better, black doing okay. So that's one line to consider if black takes, wasn't played. What else to talk about here? Not sure really. Taking here is no good because knight takes on d8 is very good for white. You're in exchange ahead. Maybe that covers all the lines. Let me know if I missed one. But this is how the game proceeded. Bishop takes on e6, takes back with check. And now the point is that after rook takes, you lose a rook here. With check, king goes, and you're in time to deal with this pin, protect the rook. Again, white's an exchange ahead with a winning game. So really nice, astute tactics there from MVL. We see king f8 therefore, once the check is landed. Rook takes, bishop recaptures, king c2, b6, and let's take fish stock. Because now white's got those bishops, and this one is an unopposed monster running round all these weakened squares. Not ideal. We now see rook to d1 played. Knight c6 round. We get a little bit of tickle. Not literally, of course. They actually banned the tickling over the board a couple years back now. It was getting a bit out of control under the armpits and everything. Although this is online cheese, of course. Bishop c4 was played here. Knight f5. Don't blunder your bishop. You and I would. And the best way to go here is with rook e8. You actually keep the rooks on the board. It's important to do so. Generates counterplay ideas. You know, imagine knight e3. Not that white's going to give you it for free, right? But it creates counterplay and so on and so forth. In the game, bishop e7. The rooks leave the board. And look at this. Pawn to b4 and you got some trouble. Now, this is insightful because if you run this with an engine, it doesn't give it that bad to take this pawn. But no human who's played a bit of chess is ever doing that because you're giving white that outside passer. You know, a5, and how do you avoid this one? Sure, you can spin pieces around to cover, maybe, but it just doesn't look humanly playable. So instead we see Hikaru hold steady with knight to d6. The bishop saves itself. Pawn attacked, defended, now takes, pawn recaptures here, and the explosive c4 really highlights the issues for Hikaru with the rooks off the board. You know, once this pawn reaches here, kicks the knight, well then look at the path the king's going to have. Just waltz on in like a man on a lackadaisical walk, gobble off that pawn, away you go. Sure, you could try and defend, but the bishop can renew the attack. This one's so much more active than this one. So c6 was played, takes control of b5, you know, stops the walk, but now pawn c5 anyway. And how about this? For a miserable seahorse back on the back rank. I mean, Dad's absolutely ashamed by this point. Look at you two pair of clowns. Pawn f5 chucked in, g5, g4, and now you really have to activate one of those pieces. You either go here, threatening this, and therefore this gives some time for this, or you do it the other way around, go bishop c7, and you stop white from doing this paralyzing move. Then you could go bishop d4, but the king can play king f7. You know, you start finding some squares for the kings and the minors. But we didn't see it. We saw h6 played. It's very bad because bishop g3 stops bishop c7. So we got king e8. Now bishop c4, also getting to the most amazing, important diagonals. Bishop e7, you know, you didn't have this one anymore, or here, and you're standing where the knight wants to be. This is the big trouble. Now it hits a pawn. You could actually ignore it and just attack that knight, but now we see the counter attack on this pawn. Hikaru's best was to actually swap here, try and hold this endgame, but again, it's far from obvious that this is good or even holdable. Outside running passer. These are also perennially weak, you know, on the dark squares here. So we didn't see this exchange of prisoners. Instead, we see the bishop drop back to cover. But now bishop e6, an absolute bone in the throat, you know, just choking Hikaru out here and what to do, right? He rotates the knight to e7. If he rotates to a7 here, because you have to, it's going to drop off the board. And say you look at this, I mean, where are you going? It's so stinky. Well, then there's bishop g3. Let's run this through, because after this one, attacking the pawn, let's say you swap a couple prisoners. Well, look at this. You can actually end up trapping the knight. Here's just one sample line. I mean, if the bishop never moved, then what? Say you come here, I guess you march with the king sort of thing. Either way, it's just hopeless. The bishops are too strong. The king's too bad. So we see knight e7 tried, but king d3, bishop c7, and bishop c3 actually forced a resignation, because the pawn's attacked here and you can't defend it. You can't get the king there. You can't get the king there. If you try this, well, wow, that's horrible. This kind of thing could carry on. Pick up a couple of pawns, and of course you just start running, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So we come back here. This is the final position. MVL just blowing Hikaru off the board there in that risky line he picked for black in the Petrov, and that's all she wrote. MVL proceeds to the final, where he's meeting Magnus tomorrow. I'll do my best to bring you that recap on the day, but it'll be coming soon. Thanks very much for watching, and have a look at the video on screen if you want to see some more epic chess. Cheers.